Hello, listeners, and welcome to the year 2024 and the premiere of Season 2 of Second Take Cinema, coming at you from the glorious Impala Films headquarters in sunny Southend-on-Sea. I am your host, Jamie Evans, joined as always by my magnanimous co-host, Rory Jocelyn.
Hello, everyone.
And have we got a big one for you to kick off Season 2? A film that Rory once referred to as the worst film he has ever seen. It's time for a second take on Man of Steel. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, we are looking at Man of Steel, the first movie in DC's DCEU, their ill-fated DCEU, which just officially saw its demise this year with the release of Aquaman 2, Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom, which I have not seen, but I am told is one of the worst movies ever made. Man of Steel is a 2013 movie directed by Zack Snyder with a story developed by David S. Goyer and Christopher Nolan, with David S. Goyer doing the actual writing of the screenplay. It stars Henry Cavill as Superman, Amy Adams as Lois Lane, Michael Shannon as General Zod, with Kevin Costner and Diane Lane playing Pa and Ma Kent, respectively, as well as Russell Crowe as Jor-El. Music by Hans Zimmer. It had a budget of $258 million. And, well, its reception was mixed, generally speaking. It has an approval rating of 56% based on 344 reviews and an average rating of 6.2 out of 10. The site's consensus reads, Man of Steel's exhilarating action and spectacle can't fully overcome its detours into generic blockbuster territory. Richard Roper of the Chicago Sun-Times said Man of Steel covered no new ground with regarding Superman films, and instead said, we're plunged back into a mostly underwhelming film with underdeveloped characters and supercharged fight scenes that drag on and offer nothing new in the way of special effects creativity. The Boston Globe's Ty Burr wrote, what's missing from this Superman saga is a sense of lightness, of pop joy. Washington Post's Ann Hornaday stated that with Hans Zimmer's turgid, overproduced score, the film is an exceptionally unpleasant viewing experience.
What, because of the score?
Sounds like you and Ann Hornaday have a lot in common.
I don't have a problem
she's
with
not
the
saying
score.
she's not saying just because of the score.
I was going to say.
But she's saying the score does not help.
I mean, nothing.
It wasn't a very standout score at all.
No, but honestly, you could give this the best music in the known universe.
It wouldn't fix it.
It wouldn't fix it because the music wasn't the problem.
Yeah. But to look at some more positive reviews, Kofi Outlaw, the editor-in-chief of Screen Rant... Yep.
Ah, she an outlaw.
Kofi Outlaw, editor-in-chief of Screen Rant, gave Man of Steel 4 out of 5 stars, stating, Man of Steel has more than earned its keep and deserves to be the, in capital letters, iconic Superman movie for a whole new generation. He went on to name Man of Steel the best superhero movie of 2013. I can't think off the top of my head what other ones came out in 2013.
It might have been the only one.
No, there was definitely a I think there's been a Marvel film every year since 2008. I feel like it's Iron Man 3 in 2013.
I mean, I can guarantee Iron Man 3 is better than this, and I haven't seen it.
Iron Man 3 is better than this.
It would have to go some to be worse than this.
Iron Man 3 is at least interesting. People disagree that the twist is good because there's a twist in Iron Man 3 and it pissed a lot of people off.
Right.
But at least it was something unexpected. There is not one single unexpected thing in this.
Oh no, this is cookie cutter.
Let's see who else gave a good review. Jim Vajoda Jim Vejvoda of IGN gave Man of Steel 9 out of 10, whilst praising the action sequences and the performances of Kevin Costner.
I mean, Kevin Costner's a good actor.
Not in this, he's not.
I mean, he didn't have anything to work with, Jamie.
I know. Russell Crowe and Michael Shannon. The performance of...
And they're both good, but again, neither of them have anything of value to work with.
Okay, I'm probably going to pronounce this name wrong, and I apologise.
Go on.
The performance of Untie Trau, I think that's how it's pronounced.
Okay.
As Superman's adversary Farah Ul, she was General Zod's second-in-command woman, particularly in the Smallville battle scene, has been lauded. I mean, she wasn't the problem in the film, to be fair.
She wasn't the problem with the fight scenes, everything else was.
Yeah.
Again, I don't have a problem with any of the actors in this.
No, not at all. Anyway, this went on to obviously cause the whole big DCEU, which, as we said, was ill-fated. And we're going to take a minute now to get right back into our review, except... Wait, what is that? Can you hear that? Oh my god. It's time for a brand new segment, new for Season 2 of Second Take Cinema. It's the segment Rory didn't know was coming, that we're going to do every week. Woo woo! Inspired by something we did on one of our Season 1 episodes, I actually forget which one now, we are going to do a little quiz. We're going to do these for the whole season, and if at the end of the season you have scored 70% or higher, we will, I don't know.
I like that you pulled that number out of your ass. Visually, I could see you going, look, you didn't even have the 70% preordained.
70% is the pass mark to pass the mandatory training at work.
Okay.
So,
all right.
We'll use it here.
If it's good enough for medicine.
If you score more than 70% across the whole of Season 2, we will watch Kill Keith. And review
That's not
Kill
a reward
Keith.
for me.
Well, what do you want as a reward? You pick a reward.
No,
now.
you know what? We'll do Kill Keith.
If you fail...
Because I'll enjoy it upsetting you.
If you
but
fail...
you're not allowed to have your phone on.
Okay.
You must watch Kill Keith.
Okay. And if you fail to get 70%...
Right.
You have to rewatch Serendipity.
Oh. All right.
Well, it's that or Human Centipede.
Serendipity. Serendipity is a fine film. It's
right.
Can I just mention something quickly on Serendipity? I'm aware that as of recording, and obviously this is the first episode of Season 2, the last episode pretty much that we put up was Serendipity. And
last episode but one, because Space Jam has now come out.
Of course. And I kicked off on Serendipity. I still hold to my dislike of it and my reasons why. But I was a whiny little bitch on that episode, to be quite blunt. I'm going to try and not be that anymore. Even if something... And I find it very kind of you to have picked the film that, as I've stated is the worst film I've ever seen, to be the first episode of Season 2.
Well, we wanted something big. We wanted something explosive.
Yeah, I know, but like... I told you I was embarrassed with Serendipity, and you're like... Man of Steel, then your next biggest.
Some of these, well, that's the thing. I'm testing your personal growth.
Fair enough.
Now, some of these quizzes will be easier than others. This one might be difficult for you, but let's find out.
Is it superhero based?
No, it's Zack Snyder based.
Oh, gold! All right.
So, as luck would have it, with the not counting his newest film that has just come out, Rebel Moon.
Yep.
Zack Snyder has made 10 movies.
Right.
Which fits perfectly with my 10-question round.
Right.
So what you're going to name for me, in order from lowest to highest, the highest grossing Zack Snyder movies.
In order?
Yeah. So
that's unfair.
No,
I'm never going to guess the order.
We did highest grossing of 1999 that time. That was a lot of fun.
It wasn't yeah, but there wasn't anything on the line for that one,
well, to be fair, we don't have to have anything on the line.
I've got the possibility of watching Serendipity again.
I'll watch it every year anyway. Right, what do you think is the lowest Zack Snyder film? You can ask for a hint.
What, in terms of financial revenue?
Yeah. In terms of financial revenue, what do you think the lowest grossing one? This is a bit of a trick question, but if you think about it, the answer's obvious.
Yeah. I think it's his first one, because is it Dawn of the Dead or something of the Dead?
It is Dawn of the Dead.
Yeah, because I thought it would be that, because even though it would be a breakout success for him, overall, like compared to something like Superman, it doesn't have.
And you're not wrong, that is low down the list, but it isn't the bottom. But like I said, it's a bit of a trick question, the bottom one is. We are talking box office revenue. Now, that might give you a hint at what the trick is. It's a film...
doesn't have a box office.
That's right, it never came out in cinemas. It stars Dave Bautista, if that helps, and it came out during the pandemic. And you are on the right line with zombies.
Oh, God. I don't even know the name of it.
It's a 3-hour zombie
yeah,
movie.
Yeah, yeah,
It's
I know which one you mean, but I don't remember its name. Obviously, being Zack Snyder, I'm not a big fan of Zack Snyder, to be quite honest with the audience. I decided it wasn't worth my time to watch, and I'd heard bad things about it anyway.
Yeah.
So if Zack Snyder fans didn't like it, I was like, there's probably nothing in this for me either. So, yeah, no, I'm not going to guess the name on that one.
That's all right. That film is Army of the Dead with a box office revenue of $0.
Yep, fair enough.
So this next one is one of only 2 films on the list remaining that isn't based on a previous IP. Most of his stuff is based on previous IPs.
Oh, so it won't be Dawn of the Dead then, because that was based on a previous IP.
It was, yeah. So in the 9th spot, this is a film that is large. It's got a bit of a cult following, but is largely remembered as bad. And it involves schoolgirls fighting demons. Basically, Snyder said, what if I could make a Japanese anime in live action?
Oh, Christ. I'm not going to know this one. Angel... No, Alita Battle Angel was...
Rodriguez.
Yeah. Oh, wasn't there one with a girl who had, like, a weapon for a leg?
That's Planet Terror.
It's Rodriguez again. Good director.
I thought you would know this one, to be fair. This is the one I'm surprised you don't know. I thought you would know this
Sucker Punch?
Sucker Punch is correct. Well done. Yep, Sucker Punch it was, which made $89.7 million. In 8th place is the film that I think is Snyder's best. And you've already guessed it.
It would be Dawn of the Dead.
That is Dawn of the Dead, which made $102 million, written by James Gunn, which I think is what helps save that film.
Pow, pow.
Up next is one if you get this, I will just give you bonus points, because you could let me spend a year guessing Zack Snyder films, and I would never guess he made this. This is so different from everything else he has ever made.
But it is based on an IP.
No, this is the other one that's not an IP.
Right.
I would never guess it. I'll give you a hint. It's an animated movie. I don't mean it's on green screen. I mean it's fully CGI animated.
Scanner Darkly?
And here's a bonus fun fact before you guess. This is the first time ever that Zack Snyder's film, a new Snyder film, did not hit number 1 in the box office.
Scanner Darkly.
It is not Scanner Darkly. It's after that.
Ooh. And an animated.
Mate, you would never guess it, to be fair.
CG animation or 2D?
CGI animation.
Right.
It's a film everyone has forgotten exists. I've literally never heard it.
Sunny with a Side of Meatballs?
Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs. No, that's a Pixar movie.
It's not Pixar.
Disney, DreamWorks. DreamWorks. No.
Shrek. Don't tell me it's Shrek.
No, it's not.
Oh, no, you said it's not based on an IP. Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs was a book as well, wasn't it?
Mm. To be fair, this might be a book and I just don't know it, to be fair.
Blade.
Honestly,
no, I have no idea.
Are you ready? Because you will not... You probably don't even remember this film coming out. I'm going to laugh saying it. It's not even funny.
God,
It's just Zack Snyder directing it is funny.
Right.
Legend of the Guardians, The Owls of Ga'Hoole.
They're never going to guess that title
It's
out.
a film
Jesus.
about owls. Animated owls of Ga'Hoole.
Oh, Christ.
Yeah. That's a Zack Snyder movie.
I remember seeing a trailer for that. It looked awful.
It's a Zack Snyder movie, and it made $140 million at the box
I say it
office.
looked awful. The animation was really good, but in a way that was really creepy.
Yeah.
Like the actual animation itself was brilliant, to be fair. But it was just really creepy seeing owls talk.
Yeah. Up next, number... 5 on the list.
Right, so all we've got left is IPs.
Is IP. It is a film that he was told would be unfilmable, and Christopher Nolan has recently come out and said he thinks this film was ahead of its time.
300.
And if it was made today, would have been remembered much better than it was back then.
Oh, Watchmen then.
Watchmen is correct.
Yeah.
It made $185 million at the box office.
Yeah.
Now that number jumps massively for this next one. So 185 million, and we're now jumping into the 400 million plus range.
How many are left?
4.
Well, that's you've got 300, Man of Steel, Batman v Superman. Oh, what's his fourth one? And we're not counting Rebel Moon.
No, we're not counting Rebel Moon.
Okay, let's see how we go.
Go on, what do you think it is?
I don't. So the bottom. It's not going to be Man of Steel. It's not going to be Batman v Superman. I can't think of what the fourth film is. I imagine
this is the oldest of the last 4 films.
It's 300 then.
It is 300.
Then it's going to be the third on the list that I don't know.
$456 million. And you're right, it is the third on the list you don't know. To be fair, you could argue this is a trick one as well. You could argue.
Because it's not a film.
No, it is a film.
It was a made-for-home video.
No, it is a film. It came out in cinemas. He technically only directed half of it.
Oh, Christ! Which one was it? The Suicide Squad. There was I remember him. I thought that was Batman v Superman.
No,
he only did half of.
No, it was the one after Batman v Superman.
Wonder Woman.
No, he didn't do Wonder Woman. Patty Jenkins did Wonder Woman. It's Justice League.
That's it.
Which made
That's it. I knew.
Yeah.
I keep getting that and Batman v Superman.
Well,
confused.
To be fair, Batman v Superman somehow crowbarred all the rest of the Justice League in. So
yeah,
I don't
that's
blame
why.
you.
That's why it's kind of nebulous.
So Justice League did come out in cinemas. I went to see it. It made $658 million, or as I like to disparagingly call it, Justice League.
Yeah.
So in my mind now, it's the Snyder Cut and Justice League. Okay, number 2 on the list. What do you think is the second highest grossing Snyder film of all time?
The second highest.
Yep.
Now I've got picked between Man of Steel and Batman v Superman.
Simple maths, really, isn't
Yeah,
it?
Man of Steel's going to be number 2, and Batman v Superman is number 1.
That is correct. 2 heroes for the price of 1.
There you go. Well, and then all the rest at the end.
Man of Steel made $668 million.
Oh, my
and Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice made $874 million.
Dawn of Justice, such an arrogant title for film number 2.
This is the whole DC problem, is that they rushed. But we're going to talk about that later in the season, because we're also going to look at the start of the Marvel universe as well this season.
Oh, okay.
And having just rewatched that, it has become more...
Iron Man?
Yeah, it has become more apparent than ever that DC rushed way too quickly.
Oh yeah, they wanted it all now rather than building.
Not to jump to anything, because like I said, we're going to leave the comparisons for the Iron Man episode. But I will just say this: this is their first film, Man of Steel, and it ends with an Avengers level battle scene.
Yes.
Where the whole world is at stake.
Yeah.
In none of the Phase 1 Marvel movies is the whole world at stake.
No.
They are smaller threats, which is what it should be.
Oh,
because
you
then
build
you build
towards
to
it.
the team up.
Yeah. It meant that the Justice League didn't really have anything special to fight against, because basically Superman on his own is doing all of that anyway.
Yeah.
So
it's
why do you need the rest of them?
It's why, in my opinion, Justice League doesn't work. Like, not even just the film, as a concept. It's what I'm not big into comic books anyway, but I'm definitely not into DC comics, because Superman negates the need for every other hero.
Right.
You don't need any of them. Like,
But he can't be everywhere at once.
you can't be everywhere else, but like, why do we need Batman?
Yeah,
Like,
you don't
get me
really
wrong,
need a rich boy with lots of tech.
Batman is the coolest hero. He's so cool, Batman is. There is a reason he is probably the most popular superhero in the world.
Yeah.
There is a reason for that. He's got the best rogues gallery, and there's just something cool and enduring about the character. But Batman is the Hawkeye of the Justice League.
Yeah.
Well, technically Green Arrow is the Hawkeye of the Justice League. But he's the Black Widow.
Right.
Batman is Scarlett Johansson. Like, you don't need him. You don't need him.
You need Scarlett. I always need Scarlett Johansson.
But he's not Scarlett Johansson.
He's not
He
Scarlett
is, but he isn't. Anyway, so let's talk about Man of Steel. So this is one you put in the list, Rory.
Was it?
It is. You put Man of Steel on the list.
I'm an idiot.
Because the whole concept was to give films we disliked a second chance.
That's true.
So, can you tell the audience about the circumstances of the first time you saw Man of Steel? Do you remember when it was, where you were, what you were doing?
I was at my house years ago watching it with a then partner. It was just, we were bored and we decided we wanted to watch a film. It was on Netflix at the time. So we were like, yeah, sod it, give it a watch, see if it comes out all right. I enjoyed the first half an hour, but not really. Right. The reason I enjoyed the first half hour wasn't because I was enjoying the film. In fact, the first half hour is dire.
If the next words out of your mouth are Russell Crowe fighting around the world, I'm going to drop kick you.
In which case, I can no longer finish this story.
Good.
Honestly, it's just the Russell Crowe fighting around the world from South Park. That's all it is. To the point where you got Russell Crowe literally fighting around the world. He then gets killed. We cut, there's a massive time skip. We don't see Superman as a child. We, not accepting flashbacks. Yeah. We immediately cut to him as an adult on a fishing trawler, tugboat, which is Tagger from fucking Russell Crowe fighting around the world. And I was literally sitting there going, you know what? If all I get out of this film is constant Russell Crowe fighting around the world quotes, then I will be a happy chap. They died off soon after that. There wasn't many left.
Was that episode of South Park before or after Man of Steel?
Long before. About 10 years before.
Oh, really?
Yeah. But yeah, that's all I got when I first watched it, and then I didn't actually finish the film. I got 2/3 of the way through, maybe, to the point where
point where it devolves into just CGI.
Yeah, so it wasn't yet the point where in the finale they reach Metropolis, but when they're fighting in the small town,
Smallville.
Yeah, when they're having the fight in Smallville, I realised this was absolute not worth my time.
Cack.
So yeah, I basically, I went, this is terrible. You enjoying yourself? She went, no. I went, well, let's just turn it off then.
And out of curiosity, what was your experience with Superman before that? Had you seen the Christopher Reeve ones, or?
I saw the Christopher Reeve ones when I was a child, but I don't remember them. I hadn't
Superman
seen
cartoon, comic books, out like that.
I'll be honest, the only real connection I've had with much Superman stuff, other than odd appearances in the odd video game, like the infamous Superman 64, or even
Mortal
when he's
Kombat versus DC.
Mortal Kombat versus DC universe, because I like Mortal Kombat, and they the Mortal Kombat team now make the DC universe games.
Is it the Injustice games?
Yeah, they make those. So I've had a little here and there, but as far as TV and film, the closest I've really got is Lois and Clark from the early 90s with Dean Cain.
Dean Cain and Terry Hatcher in it.
Yeah, that's basically it.
Yeah, fair enough.
I did want to see the one prior to this where Kevin Spacey was Lex Luthor.
Superman Returns.
Yeah, but I never got around to seeing it. Yeah.
It's bad.
I mean, it can't be worse than this. I can't imagine
I don't know. It's pretty bad.
Oh, really?
There is slight spoilers, but who cares? So obviously Kryptonite makes Superman weak.
Yeah.
So Lex Luthor builds an entire island out of kryptonite. You know, this super rare mineral that's not meant to be found many places.
And certainly not on Earth.
Yeah, somehow Lex Luthor gets enough of it to build an entire island plus his evil fortress out of it.
Nice.
Superman comes to the fortress and obviously gets dead weak because, kryptonite. But then lifts the entire island out of the ocean. And you're like, but it's made of kryptonite.
But we have this problem in this film.
You're holding... There's actually a close-up of his face, and the kryptonite's right there, like an inch from his face.
Yeah.
And he's just lifting it. Now, to be fair, the biggest crime that film did is it derailed Brandon Routh's career. And Brandon Routh, by all accounts, is a lovely guy. He's never going to be an Oscar-winning actor, but he's not a bad actor, and he should have had a better career than he had.
Right.
But Superman Returns derailed it for quite a few years.
Oh dear.
Yeah.
But then this also has inconsistencies. Like, there's the point where Superman just decides he realizes he can breathe in outer space, and then General Zod towards the end is like
they can't breathe in outer space, next minute he can, and you're like, what?
Yeah, because earlier in the film, when we're hearing Zod's backstory, he's like, once we escaped from the Phantom universe, we went to the old colonies of Kryptonians and they'd all killed each other or whatever. But they're walking around in these massive mech suits because, like, with bobbleheads, so they can breathe. But then at the end, both of them are breathing during a fight in space.
Yeah.
And we know they have to breathe because when Superman goes onto Zod's ship, basically
he can't breathe the atmosphere.
Can't breathe the atmosphere. It's like, oh, it's different type, basically whatever their version of oxygen is.
Yeah.
And Lois Lane has to wear that mask thing
Helmet
on.
thing,
yeah,
yeah.
so she can breathe while in that atmosphere.
Yeah.
And vice versa. The what's her name? The female Zod.
Farah El.
That's it. She wears that mask mostly when she's on Earth.
Yeah.
So we do know that breathing matters, but there's nothing to breathe in space, regardless of which it is, like whether it's human, oxygen, or something else. There is nothing.
Yeah.
So it defeats its own. If you're going to do it, just do it. Just go, oh, they don't need to breathe.
Yeah.
Whatever it is.
Yeah. I'm not the sort of audience this film was made for. I'll say that right off the bat, because I'm not a Superman fan.
I think you've got about 5 too many brain cells.
Don't be mean. I've seen the first 2 Christopher Reeve Superman films when I was a kid. I literally can't really remember anything that happens in them. At one point in the second one, this is the bit I always do remember. In the second one, he takes the S off of his chest and throws it like a frisbee at General Zod.
Nice.
Who is played by Terrence Stamp in the
Terrence Stamp's a good actor,
original
man.
one. Yeah, well, Michael Shannon's a good actor. It's not
He's
his
not
fault.
Terrence Stamp.
I'd put him on par with Terrence Stamp. Michael Shannon's amazing.
Well, I must have missed all the... unless he's...
Have you seen Shape of Water?
No, I haven't.
He's brilliant in Shape of Water.
Okay, I'll watch
He's
Shape
really
of Water
menacing. I'm just not a big Superman fan. I've always felt that the character is too overpowered.
Yeah.
And it's impossible to make him interesting. This film just proved that to me. I'm not... So I don't want to be a hypocrite here, because the thing is, big CGI battles can work. Avengers Endgame, the entire last act is a giant CGI battle between the Avengers and Thanos' army. The difference is, you've had 24 films at that point, leading up to that momentous moment. You know all the characters, and the battle is actually filled with all these little character moments. The entire last act, is CGI buildings falling down.
Yeah, it's just people being battered through buildings back and forth.
Yeah.
Like a really crappy game of Pong.
Yeah, and for me personally, I wasn't interested.
I'll tell you, there are many issues with this film for me. To try and... Direction-wise, it's probably... To be fair, the direction's probably not the biggest problem with it. The biggest problem this film has is its script. Its script is awful. And I don't just mean it didn't work for me. I mean it's genuinely awful. Allow me to explain that, because that sounds really arrogant. The script in this, it feels like a connection of scenes that don't mean anything, that don't coalesce. There's a whole, like, basically the entire second act. Even you got to this point, Jamie. Got to a point where you're like, I actually don't know what we're doing now. Why are we here? Why is this all happening?
Yeah, 1 minute he's on a tugboat, then he's the bartender in a bar, and then the bit I still don't get is why Lois Lane was in the Antarctic.
Yep.
She is the journalist of a local New York newspaper, well, Metropolis.
Yeah.
But it's a stand-in for New York.
Yeah, we know that, yeah.
Like, that's just ridiculous.
Why would they have sent her there? She's there with the military. Also, we don't know why Superman is there. Because he's at that point, he's still Clark Kent. Yeah. And he's just bumming around. He's
faked an identity, hasn't he? She finds out.
Yeah, but he's gone there, found the spaceship that they thought was just some Soviet-era tugboat, like a submarine.
Yeah.
But when he finds it, he just goes off for a walk. He finds it's a ship. It's like, but we don't know how he knows that, or how he knows that's there, or did he just, by pure chance, happen upon that job?
Yeah.
Like, none of the other jobs led to this one. It wasn't like he started working in the bar.
It's like he was following a trail,
Yeah, we didn't get any, which would have been better if those, but they're so random. He literally starts off as a man on tugboat doing fishing, then he's a man in a bar, then he's this, now he's the man in the Arctic. And you're like, why are we here? And they try and wrap that up with Lois Lane going, if you just follow all the little breadcrumbs, a story starts to unfold. And you're like, can you tell me what that is? Because I can't see it. Like, and the other problem is as well, is even after that point, once we've gotten to the point where he's like, I am Superman, and even then the scenes don't lead towards a conclusion, or there's no theme. I think that's the key. There's no overriding theme of what this film is about. They've gone, right, we need to do the history of Superman. So the entire first act is pointless. Literally pointless. You don't need it. You could cut the whole lot. The film would be better for it. But it's there because it's in the comics. And I think that's always been... I think that's the issue with the script. It's in the comics, so we must. But there's no logic or consistent internal logic to this film for the narrative going where it's going. And as part of that, I want to kind of talk about the writer.
David S. Goyer.
Because David S. Goyer is seemingly, he's a man who can write the best and the worst of scripts, from what I can see. Now, I don't know if his scripts start off good and get manipulated either in a good or a negative way by people or what, but... For example, so the ones I've seen, so I'll only comment on the David S. Goyer films that I've seen. Starting in 1993, he did a film called Arcade. We're going to cover that on our sister show, VGMP. Eventually, it would be considered a culture movie for that. But it's basically about, it has, what's his name? He plays Q in Star Trek Next Generation.
John Delancey.
He's the only name in it, who was a name at the time. And basically it's about an arcade machine, a brand new arcade machine, that sucks children into it and then kills them within the game.
Okay.
It's terrible. And a lot of the visual effects that are on the cover aren't in the game in the film.
Right.
Because they developed all the artwork for a very Tron-looking game. And then Disney went, that looks like Tron, we're going to sue. So they changed all the graphics of the game in the film to be like a medieval setting, so it didn't look anything like Tron. So now the poster is completely a lie, because the poster wasn't changed to match. So you've got like all the Tron-style grid lines and everything else. That doesn't happen in the film. But yeah, that script was terrible. That script needed a lot more polish. On the flip side, in 98, he did a film called Dark City, which we will cover on STC. I love Dark City. It's a really interesting cyberpunky style, like it's a dark film noir, and it's a really interesting film. Then he did the Blade trilogy, which are, there's a mixed response between the three, but generally the Blade trilogy is considered quite highly. Certainly the first Blade is considered very highly. He then did Batman Begins, which was a good film. I thought it was a great film. The Dark Knight, which is, to me, still the best superhero movie ever made. Then he did The Dark Knight Rises. But then he also did Ghost Rider Spirit of Vengeance. And then he followed Dark Knight Rises with Man of Steel, which I think is absolutely awful. He followed that up in 2019 with Terminator Dark Fate. So there's, which, is an okay film, but the story could have been stronger. So I'm really not sure what to make of
his writing career.
Yeah, because it seemed, again, like, you compare this to something like The Dark Knight, it's the same writer.
Yeah.
So it's not an unfair comparison. It's the same writer, but The Dark Knight establishes its themes from start to finish and pays them off one by one in a really satisfying way.
Yeah.
And seems to understand that in order to really kick the superhero genre up a gear, you need to use those themes and then bend those themes around your characters to try and make them fit. This doesn't do any of that.
Yeah. I think there's three major problems with Man of Steel. Problem numero uno is that the actual villain plot makes no sense. The whole plot... So for those who don't know, Krypton explodes, General Zod escapes the Phantom Zone and wants to recreate Krypton using a thing called a codec, which has a store of all the genetic material of Krypton, because what we learn in this, which I didn't think this was part of the Superman mythology, but maybe it is. I don't know if this is from the comics or if it's unique to this film. What we get told is that on Krypton, they don't have children naturally anymore. Everyone is bred in a test tube for a specific purpose in life. And General Zod was specifically bred to be a military leader. He can't do anything else.
The problem is he only states that at the very end, just before he dies. It should have been stated earlier, so we get more of a story to him.
Well, I was going to say, I think that bit, assuming that isn't in the comics, it feels like that entire bit has only been added in to give Zod an excuse to come to Earth. Looking for Superman. Anyway, the problem is the villain's plan makes no sense because he wants to use this codec to terraform Earth and turn Earth into Krypton, which obviously would be uninhabitable for humans. If he's got this big machine that can terraform planets, how come no one says to him, "Hey Zod, here's the codec. There's a planet called Mars."
Yep.
Literally, in your spaceship, it's like a day's trip away.
Not even that, probably.
Go to Mars. Do Mars, right? But fine, let's brush that under the carpet for a minute. The other two problems lie in the fact that this film is trying... and this ties into what you said about there's no theme. The problem is this film is trying to have two themes at once, and in trying to have two themes at once, it is doing neither.
Okay.
Theme number one is the with great power comes great responsibility storyline. Now, if that's what you want to do, and there's a film there.
Oh, Spider-Man did it.
This entire film, and I know this won't make me popular, this entire film should be teenage Clark Kent.
Yeah.
We shouldn't get to Henry Cavill.
We shouldn't get to Zod. It's too early for Zod.
Yeah, or fine, have Zod be the villain if you really want to, but you're right, I think he's too OP of a villain to do for a teenage
For film
Superman.
one.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter whether it's
they just
teenage,
didn't want to do Lex Luthor, didn't they? It's because it's Dark Knight. Someone pointed this out the other day to me. Dark Knight, being as successful as it was, did create this trend in superhero films where you never do the arch nemesis in the first film anymore.
Yeah.
You always save them for the second film, which has resulted... Sometimes that's benefited, i.e. Dark Knight. Batman Begins, if it had the Joker in it, would be terrible.
Yeah.
It makes sense it's not the Joker.
You need to establish the main character first, and then your main villain.
But with some films, it means that the first film ends up feeling like a prologue to the real film, which is where they fight their arch enemy.
But that's when you need to establish a strong theme. Batman Begins gets around that by not having the Joker at all.
Yeah.
But it establishes the theme of what Batman is striving towards. What sort of hero or potential villain is Batman going to be? Yeah. What are the rules he'll establish for himself and why? That's how you set that up. This doesn't do that.
Yeah. So this either needs to all be young Clark Kent, because I tell you who suffers the most in the way it's been done, and that's Kevin Costner. Because his character is written like a fucking moron.
Oh, he is a moron.
He's obviously trying to do the Uncle Ben great power, great responsibility thing, and that's fine. But that's not the way that Pa Kent comes across in this film. He comes across as a guy who's sending the message, it's better to fit in than be yourself and get bullied for it.
Yes. Yeah, and here's the thing, like, I can understand the whole keep it down, like, keep it low-key or whatever, because of the ignorance of others, right? That would be fine. Like, we could talk about this in a social context. The past of, like, homosexuality, for example. Like, when it got to the point where it was like, don't ask, don't tell for the military and things like that. It was like, well, we're not going to have a problem with you being gay. Just shut up and don't let us know that you are. Obviously, that's changed a lot, thankfully, in a good way. But that's what this message is, which probably would have worked in the 70s and 80s because that was considered progress versus the outright derision of gay people prior. But now we're at the stage where it's like, why should you hide what you are? Yeah. The story of shut up, just blend in and pretend you're not what you really are doesn't sell
But
anymore.
it even goes more extreme than that. There's literally a bit where he basically suggests that Clark should have let his entire class drown on a school trip.
At that point, you're like, you've lost all empathy with this character.
His character literally dies rather than... like, it's so easy for Clark to save him.
And also,
so
because it's a tornado, people wouldn't necessarily believe what they see anyway.
Yeah.
Something fast zipped through and swiped this guy, and he somehow survived. In the middle of a tornado, You'd believe that he got swept up by something.
Yeah, it doesn't work.
But no, son. And that quiet...
Oh, it's so horrible.
It's pretentious, but it is completely unearned, where it's just like, no, son. But no words, just the hand up and the shaking of the head as the music swells, and you're like, fuck off.
The second theme that the film is trying to do, but is failing to explore because it's trying to do too many things at once, is the Krypton versus Earth thing, which is Superman is born of one place, but he's been adopted by Earth.
Sure.
Which side will he come down on? If that's what you want to do, you can do that as well. But basically, if you're going to do that, we need to forget the whole Krypton bit at the beginning. Like you said, we don't need it.
That can be
It's an expensive waste of money.
Yeah.
What you basically need that to be then is less of this chopping and changing shit where he's walking around all these different places, he has all these different jobs, and it instead needs to be, like you suggested, he's living a life, he becomes... Why do we wait till the end for him to become Clark Kent the reporter? Just have him be Clark Kent the reporter, he meets Lois Lane, he's starting to fall in love, he's got his mum, you can have Pa Kent already be dead, we don't need him. Show how he's adapting to life on Earth, but he's got struggles with it as well, where he doesn't feel like he fits in.
I'd keep Pa Kent, because it gives... Okay, I'll let you finish first, and
then have Zod turn up, which is what you suggested.
Yeah.
But come in peace, in air quotes.
Yeah.
Posing to Superman like...
We're family.
Yeah, which, you know, fine. Fucking change the comics and have General Zod be like Jor-El's brother. Have him be Clark's
You don't even
uncle.
need to. He could just lie about it.
Yeah. But to be fair...
Because how the hell would Clark Kent
To be fair,
know?
I think I'd be more interested, just me personally, if Zod... If it's not necessarily a lie at first when he reaches out to Superman, it's more of a genuine, oh, we've come to rescue you, we're your family.
Yeah.
And they are shocked and hurt that Superman's like, well, I've kind of got a family now, I've adapted to life on Earth,
but
I like Earth.
Yeah, they're lesser life forms. Why would you want to stay with these people?
Yeah, and I realise I'm asking a Hollywood blockbuster to become a meaningful thought on fucking adoption.
No, but David S. Goyer did a really intelligent screenplay for The Dark Knight.
Yeah.
So the writer has done it before. Yeah. Hollywood has done it before.
Yeah.
There's no reason that this couldn't have done it.
Yeah, true.
And, I think the only reason that I would keep the uncle alive, I'd probably have if you're going to kill off the uncle, have him killed. Yeah. Have him killed by Zod.
Yeah.
As part of the friction of your blood family versus your adoptive family.
Yeah.
You know, so eventually he kills Pa Kent.
Yeah.
And that's what gives Clark Kent the rise of like this person is dangerous, and you know, because he's not only racist, but he's willing to kill the quote unquote lesser creatures to suit his own ends.
Yeah.
That's a much better story.
Yeah.
You've already got a theme built in. Yeah. You don't have to shoehorn it in, because that's built into the frame of the characters being aliens, all of their history, and all the stuff you've got with Russell Crowe's character and the learning about his father. Save that for a second film.
Yeah.
You don't need it in this one. You've overcomplicated it.
Yeah. So I think the building blocks for a good film are in there somewhere, but unfortunately the film is trying to be too many things at once, and it loses any sense of cohesion or identity. Now let's talk about Zack Snyder for a minute as the director, because I'm actually going to defend Snyder here for a minute. Okay. Because everything I know about Snyder, he seems like a perfectly nice guy.
Yeah. Never heard anything negative about him as a person.
And I respect Snyder in the sense that I would argue Snyder is an auteur filmmaker, just as much as Tarantino is, Christopher Nolan is, etc. In that Snyder has a definitive visual style that is his. You can tell when you're watching a Zack Snyder movie.
Yeah, when you're watching it, you know it's a Snyder.
Unless it's Owls of Gaul.
Yeah, that one's very anti-Snyder. Yeah. Unless maybe we watch it and he's blue tinted over that as well.
If you watch I have seen most of his films. If you watch his films in a chronological order, you can see him adapting and changing as a filmmaker. Yep. You can physically see him growing. And I've watched interviews. I watched the making of Army of the Dead, where he talks about this is a director. You don't often hear directors talking this way, not on like special features. He's talking about these different kinds of lenses he likes to use in his camera,
Oh, that's interesting.
and how he at
That's
the minute,
more cinematography, isn't it?
yeah, and at the minute he's upset, and I forget the name of the lens. You'll have to forgive me, but he's
Carl's Ice.
I can't remember, mate.
Or-
But he's
okay.
obsessed with a certain type of lens that gives you an incredibly, incredibly shallow depth of field.
Oh,
I'm
yeah,
talking
yeah.
so shallow that the tip of your nose can be in focus and your eyes will be out of focus.
Yeah, I'm not
It's-
a fan of that lens,
No.
except for in specific use cases.
Now, he uses it a lot in Army of the Dead.
Oh, right, okay.
But it makes sense when you watch the special and he's like, oh, I'm interested in this. So I respect Snyder for that. I don't like his visual style, personally. It's not my cup of tea. I think most of his films have this awful, dreary look to them.
I mean, this
has
film,
it.
yeah, this film is really drab to look at.
All the DC movies are.
Yeah.
They've all got this drabness to them.
I find them very ugly, actually.
Yeah, it's,
Like this film specifically, like
this looks ugly, yeah.
it's really ugly.
It's very ugly to look at. And what was hilarious is back when people were doing the whole Marvel versus DC thing, people were going, well, DC's better because it's more adult, it's darker. And you're like, yeah, I think that's a good way for them to go. It should be darker in theme. It does not need to be physically darker to look at.
Yeah, so
Like, that's a shallow way of being dark.
and some of it. Okay, so this is going to be a bit nerdy if you will indulge me somewhat.
We're talking colour science, bro.
We're talking a little bit of colour science. Not a huge amount because I'm not an expert at colour science, but I know a little bit. Anyway, I'm not going to go into like you should really pick Hue 2274. No, not that nerdy. But basically, anyone who's in the industry will have heard of a LUT, but anyone who hasn't, a LUT or an LUT is essentially like a colour plugin that you put into a piece of editing software, usually things like DaVinci Resolve or something like that. But basically, what it does is you plug it into your film stream, where you've got the video, and it will automatically recolor it to basically paint it with certain key colours. So in this film, you can see a lot of oranges and blues, which is very popular around the 2013 year. But you get this a lot. It's basically an evolution of the saturation like overlay after the Matrix came out, and they had the purple and the green overlays in like film after that. A lot of films, even that ones that were nothing even remotely the same as The Matrix, we go, to make it look professional, we'll stick a green tint over it, and it all look green, and that'll be fine, and it looked ugly, but it was just because that's what they thought was quote-unquote professional. LUTs have become a similar thing, just with a slightly more expanded palette. Rather than one colour, they'll use 2 or 3, sometimes 4. Now, the problem with certain LUTs, like the one that's used in this, it gives one of 2 effects. If it's not used properly and you don't tweak it to give to actually have an idea of what you want the final image to look like before you shoot, what you end up doing is, for me, it looks like the LUT was used because of green screening. Basically, even in shots without green screen, you'll use the same LUT because
you want the film to match.
You want it all to match. So anything with green screening, you've got to remove green from your image. So immediately your colour palette is reduced. So in order to compensate for that, like when you switch from a shot with green screen to one without, suddenly there's more vivid green colours in one than the other. So to get around that, you stick in a LUT, like dial down the green, boost the blue or the
and
orange.
that's how you end up with all your trees and your shrubbery and stuff like that looking that awful muddy dull colour.
Yeah, like it is in Spectre. Spectre is another...
I haven't seen Spectre.
Yeah, Spectre has that problem. I watched it in the cinema and what the fuck have they done to the colours in this film? Yeah. And that was the proof of it. I saw the grit. And like, oh, nice fresh grass, Bond, in the middle of the... And you're like, is it? It's yellow.
This grass looks like it needs water.
Yeah, it looks dead. But anyway, so number one, if you're not using it if you're not using it artistically and actually building that into the frame, you're just applying it in post. It looks like a way to get around the fact that actually you didn't plan your shots color palette very well, and you've just used one clean wipe to get around green screening. Certainly with a film like this, which is absolutely chock full of green screening. The other issue is that it is cheaper, it is easier, it's used a lot in indie film, but the other option you could do is paint with light. So if you're, and obviously that's a lot easier if you're not doing any green screening, because you don't have to worry about a reduced color palette in post. But set up colorful lighting, set up anything anywhere to give your characters this is what they used to do in the 80s, because they didn't have a lot. You couldn't just slap a lot in and go, right, now I'm going to do Blade Runner, for example, and then I'm going to stick blue and orange in it, and then that's blue and orange in post.
Yeah.
You know, you had to go, right, well, in order to get blue and orange in this scene, I need to light with blue lighting and orange lights over here. And actually, they had to work around issues with the types of lights they had. Yeah. Blade Runner's quite fascinating for that. One of the lights that they used, have you seen Blade Runner?
Yeah.
You know,
long time ago.
Yeah. You probably remember at least somewhat the scene where the villains, Roy Batty and Ruka Howell, blah, 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 go into the room that's frozen. And you've got the old Chinese man who works on stuff, and he's like...
no, I don't remember.
Oh, okay. Well, in that scene, they're in a small enclosed space. It's really icy. It should be quite a vivid blue. It's slightly green tinted. And the reason it's green tinted was because they lit it for blue, but because they were using, gas-powered bulbs, not modern LEDs and stuff like that, that type of tube, the gases that would expand would give off a bluish light, but that came across slightly green.
Right.
And the closer you got to the light source, the greener it got. And because it was in one small enclosed space, it looked more green.
Right.
So they had to paint with light. They had to go, right, well, if we're using this light, we have to compensate with this type of a light. They don't do that anymore. We paint in post, just slap in a lot, done.
Yeah, just do generic lighting so the scene is lit and then add everything in post.
Yeah, but the problem is you end up with what now look like very bland films.
Yeah.
Because everything's filmed in a bland sense and then just slap in a lot on post. I'm sorry, guys, it just doesn't do the job you think it is.
Yeah.
A lot should support your lighting choices. It should not be a replacement for your lighting choices. Yeah. That's me on my soapbox. I'm sorry, but I thought...
No, I agree, though. This is one of my biggest problems with this film, is it's ugly to watch.
Yeah.
I personally felt it was right down to Superman's costume, and I know
the colours,
I know they're trying to make it more adult, and that's fine. I get that. Like, that's why he hasn't got the pants on the outside of the costume anymore. But you've got a very shallow idea of making it dark. It's the same thing.
It's Shadow the Hedgehog.
Yeah, it's Shadow the Hedgehog. There was a British show, a spin-off of Doctor Who called Torchwood, that all the marketing, they were like, it's an adult version of Doctor Who. It's more adult this, it's more adult that. And when you watch it, it's so obvious that they're trying to be adult.
Yeah.
That just every other word out the characters' mouths is some sort of sexual thing. It's swearing. It's too try-hard. This film is too try-hard.
Yeah.
It's trying too hard to go, look how adult we are, look how adult we are, with a Superman movie.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sorry, but Superman is like Captain America. Like, he's founded on this patriotism. He's red, white, and blue. Like, you know what I mean?
He's literally red, white, and blue.
Yeah, well, he's yellow. He's yellow, isn't he, Superman? Red, yellow, and blue.
Oh, okay.
The S, not in this film, but traditionally the S has yellow
good point.
doesn't it? But you know what I mean. The point is he's made to be this all-American square-jawed hero played by a Brit, but whatever.
They weren't square enough in America.
Yeah, it just... Yeah, unfortunately, this is only my second ever viewing of Man of Steel, and it has not done anything to improve my opinion of it, I'm afraid. I found it... Don't get me wrong, unlike yourself, I'm not going to sit here and say it's the worst film I've ever seen. I have seen much worse than this. This is just so forgettable to me. Like, I don't need to ever think about this film again. I don't care. And I feel like, obviously, we've now got 20/20 hindsight.
Yeah.
This bad of a start is so indicative of how disastrous the DCEU went on to be.
Yeah.
Because it never recovered. It never picked up again. Every film they've done has been bad. The best one, I think, is Wonder Woman, the first Wonder Woman. And then Wonder Woman 2
That got a lot of props, didn't it, when it came out?
Yeah. But then the second one, Wonder Woman 1984, which, to be fair, I haven't seen yet, is apparently awful. I did see The Flash last year in 2023. I saw The Flash. that was bad. The Flash was very bad.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't really know what else to say about Man of Steel, quite frankly. So I think we'll wrap up there. I was kind of hoping that coming back to this film with some hindsight, I might be a bit more enamoured with it, but unfortunately not. As I say, though, Superman is a hard character to make interesting to me, because I just have never identified with him, really. Anywho, that calls a close on the season 2 opening episode. We are back. We're very excited to be back. We've got lots of exciting films planned to talk to you all about. And we've got a load of guests lined up this season who are going to be coming on to talk about various movies from all sorts of genres and time periods, etc., etc. So, without further ado, I think it's time to say goodbye and call it a wrap on Man of Steel.